Right now on Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News, unemployment concerns in Colorado.
Coloradans who've lost their jobs are being left in limbo, waiting weeks, even months, for the benefits they're owed.
These delays are significant.
I got increasingly frustrated.
In a time of rising layoffs and economic uncertainty, the safety net is stretched thin, and for many, help isn't coming fast enough.
I was expecting it to be a pretty smooth process, but that ended up not being the case.
We're hearing personal stories of struggle dealing with Colorado's unemployment system and taking a look at what can be done to make sure help arrives when people need it most.
Welcome to Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. I'm Colorado Public Radio's Nathan Fernando Frescas.
And I'm Denver7's Micah Smith. Each week in a partnership between Denver7 and CPR, we have a real talk about issues impacting underrepresented people across Colorado and amplifying voices you may not always hear.
This week, we're focusing on an issue that's becoming a daily reality for more and more Coloradans: unemployment.
Since President Donald Trump began his second term, his administration has made it a priority to downsize the government. As a result, the administration cut tens of thousands of federal jobs nationwide, including some right here in Colorado.
Yeah, the city of Denver also points to the president's policies as a driver of economic uncertainty. In the Mile High City, Mayor Mike Johnson says the city is facing a $250 million budget deficit and announced a hiring freeze and furloughs earlier this year.
So to put it simply, it's a very difficult economic environment for a lot of people right now. And now many are turning to unemployment benefits for the first time. Yeah,
the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment tells us it consistently gets more than 3,000 new unemployment claims per week and about 32,000 continuing claims per week.
While unemployment benefits are supposed to serve as a lifeline for many, that support is not coming fast enough.
One of those dealing with the complexities of Colorado's unemployment system is Alan Lally of Denver. He became unemployed earlier this year and he immediately applied for unemployment insurance benefits.
Yeah, but it took Alan 7 weeks to finally get his first payment. And Alan, you say the hurdles you had to overcome to get that payment were confusing and frustrating. We want to thank you for joining us on the show and being willing to share your experience firsthand.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. When you first started applying, what did you think the process would actually be like?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty, and maybe this was naive of me to think this, but like I thought that it would be a relatively straightforward process. I know you are eligible for unemployment benefits, like if you lose your job involuntarily and like you didn't commit fraud, and I did not commit fraud, and I lost my job like involuntarily.
Yeah.
So I was expecting it to be a pretty smooth process, but that ended up not being the case.
Well, you mentioned feeling naive, but I think most people would feel the way that you do. You pay into a system. When it's time to reap the benefits, you think it'll be a smooth process. Well, the state says it may take 4 to 6 weeks to get an initial payment, right? That's for unemployment. But the state also admits that it probably or may take longer. What were your thoughts as the weeks went by with no movement?
I just, honestly, like I got increasingly frustrated, and it started off with me like trying to call the department and like try to get an update or see if there was anything that I could do to like move things along. For a while, I couldn't even get anybody on the phone. Like I would call and then they would say that there was no one available to help, and instead of giving me a chance to even like leave a message or request a callback, it would just hang up on me automatically. And I had to go through my friends on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram, to get some tips, where I was told that you need to call them right at 8 a.m. to get a hold of anybody. And so I did that, and that worked, and I was feeling hopeful, but then it was just kind of I was getting told the same thing over and over, like, oh, just hang tight, like, it'll be here soon, like, just like we have a process that we need to follow. And
all this time, I'm assuming, your finances are not, infinite, right?
Exactly,
and so things are ticking down, and you're having to still pay your bills, you're having to still put food on the table. That must have been terrifying, because I know I have maybe a little cushion, but like it is nowhere near, months and months and months worth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I got somebody on the phone, I would try to like appeal to their humanity and say like, hey, like, I understand you have a process here, but like my bills don't just magically go away like while I wait for you to approve me for the benefits that I'm rightfully owed. I was already living paycheck to paycheck. Like, I'm still trying to get a handle on my student loans. Like, I don't want to live like this forever, but I also recognize my privilege in that my mother was able to help me during that time. Like, she's in a position to help me out, and so she was able to help me cover my rent and like pay some bills. Like, I was about ready to run out of my medication that I take for ADHD and other mental health struggles, and she was able to pitch in for that. But not everybody is that fortunate.
Yeah. Well, Alan, we did reach out to the State Department of Labor and Employment to get answers on how to get the claims process moving faster. In a statement, they did tell us first, after you file your claim, register with Connecting Colorado, Colorado's labor exchange, to prove eligibility. You also must complete weekly certifications to request payment every week, or your claim will go inactive. And next, you have to respond to any verification requests as soon as possible. What was your experience like with this entire process?
I don't remember being aware about the Connecting Colorado piece of it. I was aware of the weekly certifications, but and I did my best to certify every week, and apply for jobs. But when you don't know where your bills, if you're going to be able to pay your bills, and you're wondering if you're going to get evicted from your home, or mom's not going to be able to pay rent this month, there were so many other things I was thinking about, and it was hard, to find the energy to do those things.
Well, I want to talk about that because you talked a lot about just the mental toll that you're going through. I rattled off a lot there in terms of the process of not only becoming eligible or proving your eligibility, but staying eligible. That feels like a lot.
Yes, it is. It's a
and
lot of work.
And you're searching for work. So,
Yeah. You gotta do 5 job search activities a week, minimum, to get your weekly benefits payment. So that's part of it. And then you also have to meet with I don't know what they're called, a caseworker, something like that, to help you find employment, and registering with all these places.
And this is in the same time as you're still waiting to get that payment, right?
Right.
Yeah. And you even went to your representatives to be like, hey, I'm swimming here and I'm not getting anywhere.
Right. So I live in South Denver, Englewood area. So Meg Froelich is my representative, and I've been a very politically active person for a while, and so I knew that resource was available to me, and they got back to me promptly, and I was very grateful for that. And they tried to speed it up, and use their power as a state rep to do something about it. And I place no blame on Representative Froelich's office at all. It was just when they would reach out, it seemed like it was falling on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like yelling into the void
Exactly.
sometimes, I think. And Alan, I know you were able to have the ear of Representative Froelich, but for other Colorado leaders who may be listening to this episode of Real Talk right now, what would you want them to know about all of this?
These systems have a real human impact on people like me, and I know that I'm not the only one. And and I think that's the most basic function of government, is really to just be a human and see the humanity in the people that you serve.
Well, Alan, thank you for bringing your humanity to this and really putting a face to people going through this. I so appreciate you taking the time for this Real Talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And as we mentioned, we did reach out to CDLE. They denied our request for an interview, but they tell us 95% of their total claim volume is processed within 6 weeks or less.
You can sign up for text alerts to get immediate notifications on your claim. You can also find more information at cdle.colorado.gov.
Coming up, we'll hear from the lawmaker Alan contacted about how she and other lawmakers may be able to help if you're frustrated working your way through the unemployment system.
This is Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. I'm Denver7's Micah Smith.
And I'm Colorado Public Radio's Nathan Fernando Frescas. Today we're talking about unemployment in Colorado. You just heard from one Coloradan who waited 7 weeks for his first unemployment payment, but he's not alone.
Across the state, unemployment claims are taking 4 to 6 weeks to process on average, and many cases are dragging on even longer. As we heard from Alan, navigating the system can be confusing and frustrating.
But in his case, help from a state lawmaker's office did indeed make a difference.
Joining us now is State Representative Meg Froelich, whose office helped Alan get connected to the right people and push his case forward. Representative Froelich, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, first, Alan said while your office couldn't necessarily fast track his claim, you did help him find a path forward. What did that support look like?
Well, we are a part-time legislature, so we're in there from January to May, and then we're supposed to go back and bring in the crops or whatever it is that we're supposed to do. So our bandwidth is a little bit limited, and we only have one staffer per person. But there is a provision where if we contact a state agency, they are supposed to let us know an answer within 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
Now, the answer isn't necessarily fully conclusive, but it does. I would encourage people to, if they are seeking answers from any state agency about unemployment or about a whole host of other things to do with the state, it's not a bad idea to contact your rep. We don't get that many people, and there's certainly a lot of us who would like to see more engagement with our state government. I mean, 80% of the laws that affect your daily life are done in Denver and not at the federal level, which gets so much more attention.
I mean, it really is that basic function of government that someone can call you up and be like, I have a problem with X, Y, or Z, and you can just say, here's a little bit of a hint or help or a little push forward in the right direction, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And if you think of your local government, you want a stop sign, that's your city council. Go to your city council person. Again, we don't hear from that many people, especially nice people like Alan, that you really want to, you're like, dude, I really want to see if I can help you out.
I hope Alan hears that compliment. When it comes to these delays, though, what are your other constituents saying? What are you hearing from them?
Well, I think what Alan highlighted and what we really have come to know is this important ripple effect in people's lives, that these delays are significant. And if we think about a robust economy that works for all, we don't want people who are losing their housing. We don't want people who are food insecure. We don't want people, if you think about losing your job, that in America means a lot of times losing your health benefit. And so we don't want an unhealthy population or our emergency rooms flooded. So the faster we can get these, whether it's, we have emergency rental assistance, we have emergency food assistance, and of course, unemployment benefits. The other interesting piece in our changing economy is less and less people qualify for unemployment, because if you're a contractor, which is all of your drivers for Uber,
your
Lyft,
gig workers and
DoorDash,
things like that,
all of
yeah.
those are considered contractors and not employees. And unemployment insurance is an agreement between businesses and the state. They pay into it, and then should a claim come, they're paying out that claim. So in this shifting economy, so many people are not only living paycheck to paycheck, but they don't even have the safety net of unemployment.
And I'm thinking about, the federal workers in Colorado who have been laid off as the administration changes things here in Colorado. So is this just a case of the system being overwhelmed with claims, or is there something deeper going on here?
Well, the system was overwhelmed with claims during COVID, and those were really, really difficult and long waits. So the economy has come back, but obviously there are broader things at play. So for example, on the federal workers being laid off, we have on my newsletter a standard connection to your congressperson's webpage, the ones that serve my district, and they have a special page for laid off federal workers. These are your resources, these are your options. So again, that's another level of government, but I would say, and they are well staffed, so they have people whose full-time job is making sure you're connected to your, whether it's veterans benefits or Social Security, Medicaid, and of course that is a big looming challenge coming to our state.
Yeah, absolutely. We did hear from the Department of Labor that 4 to 6 weeks is usually the standard when you're waiting for your unemployment benefits. Again, for many it can take longer. Is that acceptable to you as a lawmaker?
I will say I would never want to be on record as saying somebody needs to wait 4 to 6 weeks for an important paycheck, that especially when we're cutting it close to the edge and living paycheck to paycheck, as so many of our residents are. And Colorado's expensive. But given the financial restraints that they're operating under and the realities of a state in which, as you know from Tabor, we can't grow our budget. And so every year we return to taxpayers anything in surplus. So the department, frankly, especially now, last year we cut $1 billion from our budget, and we're looking at a similar situation going forward. So they literally can't come to us and say, can we upgrade the system? Because even if it costs $20, we're in a budget cutting situation.
All right. Well, Representative Meg Froelich, thank you so much for joining us for this Real Talk and really helping us gain some insight into the system.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there is work being done to address the delays. For those who've already lost their job, the financial strain is immediate.
Coming up, a financial planner joins us to share strategies on how to prepare and survive a sudden loss of income. This is Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. I'm Colorado Public Radio's Nathan Fernando Frescas.
And I'm Denver7's Micah Smith. Today we've been looking at Colorado's unemployment system and the people left waiting for the benefits they desperately need. But what if you could be better prepared for that possibility?
It's a hard truth, but layoffs can happen to anyone. So we want to end today's episode with some tools and tips from experts about how to survive if this happens to you.
Joining us now is financial advisor Bruce Allen. Thank you so much for being with us today, Bruce. So what are the most important financial steps individuals should take to prepare for a potential loss of income?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is that we're talking about in an ideal world, if somebody was perfectly prepared to walk into this very emotional and tumultuous situation, as you've articulated very well. You know, there's a lot of feelings that come up, but one of the things that can really help is if somebody says, okay, if I were to undergo this process or lose my job unexpectedly, how can I be financially ready? There's a couple of things that we think are really important. The first thing in preparation for this is, number one, to have some kind of an emergency cash fund, number one. That really helps enormously, and we'll talk about that. Number two is to make sure that you've paid off a lot of the debt. Like, for example, if you can come into a period of time when you don't have a salary and you do not have any credit card debt and you're paying your credit cards off each month, that's a much better situation for you than if you're racking up credit card debt. And we'll talk about what other things you can do with the other debt that you have. Thirdly is if you can eliminate any loans. If you've taken out a loan against your 401k, you do not want to go into this kind of situation with a loan on your 401k. And lastly, if you have a monthly budget, that can really help build everything that we're about to talk about. So which expenses are critical, groceries and utilities, which are optional, like do I really need a second streaming service? Of course we do, but but obviously, you know, those kinds of things are really important. What's essential and what is discretionary spending. And lastly, if you think that you might be subject to this, some people have even suggested, you know, make sure your family, everybody gets the right healthcare checkups so that you have that under your belt before you go into a period where you might be struggling with health insurance issues. So those are some of the 5 things we think about, and there may be more.
Right, and you know, you talked a little bit about this emergency fund. I mean, how much should that be ideally so you feel financially secure when something like this happens?
Sure, and every person has their own numbers. When we talk to people in my profession, and all of my peers in my profession will second this. What's a suitable emergency fund for one person is a very different number for another. But having said that, the rule of thumb is if you could, once you've identified your monthly budget, how much am I living on each month? What's essential, what's discretionary? And then you really take a look at that and said, okay, really push come to shove, what do I need to have for a monthly budget? What are my expenses each month? And then the second thing is, what time period do you want to be able to make it through? For example, if you're in a career where you know, like in healthcare, for example, you might lose your job and 3 other places would be immediately getting a hold of you. You might say, well, my emergency fund needs to be 3 months. If there's another profession, it might take you almost a year to get another job. Those kinds of, that timeline is really critical. So what's your monthly budget, what's your monthly expenses, and how much time do you need to get another job? And then those 2 factors coming together are going to dictate how much your emergency fund should be. And lastly is, that money should not be invested in risky assets. It should be in something very safe so that you don't have to worry about if the stock market declines, your emergency fund is declining. You want to be able to make sure that that's there for you and that it is the amount that you need it to be there.
What should someone do immediately after being laid off in order to stabilize their financial situation?
Well, I think the first thing is that you want to review any discretionary expenses and look at reducing them. And obviously, hopefully, you're coming into this with having your credit cards paid off, because that's the most expensive kind of debt to have typically. Secondly is you want to review your employer benefits and your exit package. What does that look like? What benefits do you have, and which can you maintain and which can you not, and what kind of exit package are you looking at? And the first thing that really everybody's going to want to know about is health insurance. Right. Number one concern people have when they lose their job is, what's going to happen to my health insurance? They typically rely on their employer plan to have that health insurance. So the first thing is, do they want to continue that? And there's a rule called COBRA, and COBRA allows people, if you lose your job, to keep your employer health insurance plan for a specific period of time. The other piece of that, though, is that most employers subsidize the cost of their employees' health insurance. So if you're paying a certain amount a month for your health insurance and you're employed, you can keep your health insurance, but you have to pay for the full monthly cost, which can be expensive. And that leads to the second issue, in which it may make a lot of sense for people to not only consider continuing that particular health insurance plan, but to really shop for, what are your options? What are my options if I'm out of work? How do I keep my health insurance going? Number two is life insurance, disability insurance, other kinds of insurance. Those policies may be portable, and you may want to keep those to protect your family. Number three, do you have any paid time off? What are your vacation days? Do you have a severance package? All those kinds of things, and taking the time to really understand that package makes a huge difference in terms of what you're looking at. Number four, are you going to be receiving unemployment, and how much and for how long? That's really critical. And then lastly is retirement plans, and we'll talk about that. What do I do with my retirement plan money?
We've talked about retirement plan
Yes.
quite a bit, and I actually just saw a national story not too long ago showing that a lot of people leave their jobs and don't do anything at all with their 401ks. So
Yes.
what's your best advice pertaining to retirement
Three
plans?
options when you have a retirement plan and you leave your job. One is to leave it there. So sometimes that's not a bad option, just leaving it there. Number two, potentially taking that money and moving that to, once you get a new job, to your new employer plan. Number three, potentially rolling it over to an IRA and you managing it yourself, or hiring a professional to help you manage it. Number four, taking a lump sum, which is the least advantageous and also can be the most expensive. And the expenses are really dependent on your age. Below 55, there's a 10% penalty for early withdrawal out of retirement plans typically, and you have typically all the taxes to pay. 55 and 59 and a half, a little different story. You can access some of that without the 10%, but you still have to pay taxes, and over 59 and a half, no 10% penalty at all, and still taxes. And there's also some other things. If you have employee stock in your plan, you have to kind of look at it.
Very helpful advice, Bruce. For those who are listening and watching and want to get a hold of you for more financial advice, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
We have a website. It's under Bruce Jalen Investments LLC, and we're happy to chat with people. And again, hopefully nobody has to deal with this who's watching, but if it comes up, it happens, and hopefully they'll be well prepared.
All right, financial advisor Bruce Allen, thank you so much for being here with us.
Absolutely.
And that is this week's episode of Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. Every week we have a Real Talk on issues impacting Coloradans who are often overlooked.
You can find all of our shows on denver7.com/realtalk or at cpr.org/realtalk. Have a great day.